It was just some talk on the street with street kids about if you go to Hollywood, you can make it, you'll be a success. You know, everyone there goes, you know, they become a star. So I fell for it.
Matthew Boger. His story is one of success in the City of Angels, but it's not in the way he imagined it.
I knew I was gay. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that, and yet it made me a target for some horrific bullying incidents in school.
After months of enduring abuse, he simply did what any rational 13-year-old would do. He stopped attending. When his devout Catholic mother found out he was truant, she confronted her son.
And I told her it was because I was gay. And she said, "No, you're not." And she said, "You'll never step foot in this house until you're done and not gay." And she dragged me across the floor and threw me out the door.
So he scrapped up enough for a bus ticket and landed in this park.
I thought, well, the park, that's cool. I did that in San Francisco. I'll find a boyfriend, you know, this will all be great.
A hot dog stand across the street from the park, called Okie Dogs, would occasionally provide a meal. But one night, 14 skinheads appeared across the street.
I heard one of them yell the phrase, "Let's kill the faggots," and I realized that my life at that point was in danger.
Matthew then took off running down the alley, but the mob had split in two and cornered him.
They relentlessly started kicking, punching, knocking me down to the ground. The 14 skinhead also had razor blades in their boots, so as they were kicking, their goal and their intent was, you know, it wasn't maximum damage, it was actually their intent was to kill the kid that was in the alley.
Matthew miraculously survived and nursed his wounds alone for 2 months.
And I just existed hour by hour in what would happen next. There's a part where you give in. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, and hopefully it's death.
But he persevered. The 13-year-old who hopped on that bus to Hollywood, he made it out of the park. First by working at a fast food restaurant, and then as a hairstylist. He then found a job at the Museum of Tolerance, a unique multimedia museum examining racism and prejudice throughout the world.
And it was the perfect outlet for exactly what I was looking for.
The museum seems to attract people with troubling pasts, like Timothy Zaal.
I went many, many years where hate and violence for me was like breathing. I couldn't live without it. It was like being a junkie.
And Tim recounts early childhood violence that led him down a path to become a white supremacist.
My brother being shot by an African American, I think, is the #1 reason why I became a racist, an extreme racist.
He eventually served time after being convicted of assaulting an Iranian couple. The bars didn't change Tim, though. All it took was a moment with his son.
I'm in the grocery store with my son. He sees an African American man in the store and says, "Look, Daddy, there's a big black," and blurts out the N-word. And I was starting to rethink my life, my living patterns, the kind of things that I was doing.
Matthew and Tim were paired up to give presentations to youth on hate and recall one school group that changed their lives.
Matthew wanted to discuss, how best to approach this particular group, and we went to have coffee and talk about the situation.
In those first few months, I'm thinking of him as this really cool guy that I want to get to know more about, which was why I reached out to him when there was this issue at a school.
And during our conversation, we started to talk about where we used to hang out, Hollywood. He was talking about Okie Dogs and the park, and I was talking about punk rock and Okie Dogs. And I said something like I quit going there because of violent behavior that I was involved with, and he started to ask all these questions.
So there was a moment of, I was absolute disbelief, because you're just saying, like, this cannot possibly be true, and at the same time you're like, no, the only people who know what happened in the alley are me and 14 guys who were there. And I'm sitting across from one of those 14.
The time, the place, it all started to add up. But it was the look and feel of that final boot that gave the pair the proof they needed.
And I also used to take the corners of razor blades and break them off and stick them in the toes and the sides of my boots. And when I kicked him in the head, he was out.
So here they were, 2 men. A victim, a perpetrator. Matthew and Tim kept their distance until museum programmers got wind of their story and encouraged them to begin a program called Hate to Hope.
And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really like him. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter. You're just going to tell the story. I'm like, but I don't know if I can sit on a stage with him. I wasn't there yet.
I mean, we were sort of thrown together. And I knew that there was a process to go through. I've got Facebook, but Facebook's pretty cool because MySpace, because it's got a bunch of...
But the beautiful part of all of that is that we're simply just two people who are completely normal. Who doesn't get frustrated with their friends when they don't think they're doing what they want them to do, and so on and so forth, and all those normal things. And that's an incredible process.
The one thing you begin to realize, these two, they aren't so different.
There's a common thread in that feeling invisible and feeling put down and feeling rejected and feeling not important and worthless as a child that led us in these different directions, but meeting up twice in one life.
For Time Video, Sean Donnelly, reporting from Los Angeles, California.